Welcome to Monotone Movie Reviews, where we take an honest look at movies, whether that's blockbuster hits or films you barely heard of. Today, we're going to be looking at the 2013 film Frat Brothers, starring Romeo Miller and Michonne. Frat Brothers is a movie based around a fictional fraternity, Delta Gamma Gamma. We follow brothers Kyle and Quentin Cooper. What we see out the gate is Quentin is a lot more enthusiastic about pledging Delta Gamma Gamma like his father, his uncles, his granddad, but Kyle doesn't seem as convinced. For those who are in the Greek world, legacy means a lot. Pledging the fraternity that your father joined is like the greatest gift to a dad. So if you choose not to follow in his footsteps, it is a very big slap in the face. But we're men, so you got to get over it at some point. But the hurt, that initial hurt, it is different. But at this point, I think Kyle is more focused on enjoying college life. You know, he's walking around campus with his roommate. He's trying to show him a few things, explain like Greek life, college life. His roommate wants to pledge, has no idea what he wants to pledge. So he's showing interest in any and every group that'll allow him around, which is like one of the worst things you could do if you're an interest. You pick one and you stick with it. That's what you gotta do. He shows his roommate the two different frats. Delta Gamma Gamma, obviously, where his father and everybody in his family join. And Mu Upsilon Pi, which is a rip off the Kappa Alpha Psi. We also see him playing basketball with some of the brothers from Delta Gamma Gamma. And you see one of the big brothers is played by Lil Romeo, who is absolutely against Kyle and Quentin joining the fraternity for some reason. Seems like he's just hating on the fact that they have legacy in Delta Gamma Gamma, and he feels like they should have to earn it on their own, which regardless they will if they actually get the pledge. We get a glimpse at Kyle's love interest, Nia, and we figure out exactly why Lil Romeo doesn't like Kyle. Lil Romeo likes Nia, and that's Kyle's girl. So he's doing everything in his power to kind of separate, those two. Quentin is trying to explain to Kyle that Nia is basically like Helen of Troy. D-Shaw, that's Lil Romeo's character, really likes her, and because he likes her, it's gonna cause problems for them if they make it online. It means that he's gonna be extra personal and take out his frustrations on not having Nia on Kyle and Quentin, which is like one of the worst things you can have as a pledgee big brother that's in love with a girl that's dealing with you. And we see this play out at a party where Kyle is talking with Nia and D-Shaw comes around and uses his big brotherhood to kind of push Kyle away from Nia. And in that moment, I think that's when Kyle realized pledging Delta Gamma Gamma isn't worth having to deal with D-Shaw. And I think that's the worst thing when it comes to like having a chapter, is having that one brother that's so insufferable that you run off good prospects. Now this is a college movie, so we do have to go to class every once in a while. And of course we take the one class that talks about ethics and somehow like broaches the subject that's exactly happening in the movie. We also see the brothers hanging out at the Delta Gamma Gamma house. And this is where like the tensions really fled between D-Shaw and Kyle, because D-Shaw is telling everybody that he's not going for Kyle, and they're kind of on Kyle about how much he's been around. And they basically asked him like, are you really interested or not? And he kind of tells them, I don't have time. And, his brother Q, who's been cutting for him this whole time, is like, no, we're good. He goes outside to talk to Kyle, But Kyle is completely over D. Shaw. D. Shaw is, pushed him to the brink, and I don't blame him. Now, Q is outside talking to Kyle, trying to, talk him off the ledge, but it's not happening. This whole fight this night has pushed him to do the unthinkable. Kyle shows up to Mu Gamma Pi's interest meeting, their interviews. And, this is like the rival frat. This is, fire and ice, basically. And Kyle is overly prepared for the interviews, which throws him, and they say, how are you prepared? Who prepared you? He said, my father. But when he tells them his father is from, Delta Gamma Gamma, they turn him down. But then they bring him back and have a private meeting with him and ask him, like, why are you trying to come with us if you're a legacy of Delta Gamma Gamma? And he said he wanted to try something different, something better. Although Kyle gets in, this decision is weighing heavy on him. And he goes to the place he always goes when he needs someone to talk to, and that's Nia. So he tells her what he did. He goes to her room to tell her what happened. And she explains how selfish he is because he didn't say anything to Q. And Q is like the most loving brother you can have. And he just betrayed him. While Kyle was interviewing for the Pies, his brother was interviewing for the Gammas. And because his brother was interviewing, he know that Kyle didn't come to the interviews. So he comes to the doorstop to confront him about that because he spent the last year fighting to get his brother online. I think Q's like 1 year older than his brother. So I think he went against having his own process to wait to have a process with his brother, only for his brother not to show up. Like, Q could have been in the frat already, but he was waiting on his baby brother. The biggest problem now is his father found his pledge book. Father, being the devout Gamma, seeing that Kyle is pledging Pi is like the ultimate slap in his face, and he is PO'd. He is upset, and he will not mess with Kyle ever again. And you'll see this later in the scene when Kyle shows up after he crosses. He's throwing all kind of shade. This confrontation between Kyle and his father is weighing heavy on Kyle. And Kyle is kind of, crashing out the way. He's shutting down. He's not answering the door. He's not answering the phone for his LBs. And they're calling. They have session tonight and they need him to be there. But because Kyle is going through this internal crisis that he created himself, he's turning his back on the people that has his back. The process is hard enough, on its own. But when you have a LB that becomes a problem, it just makes your process that much harder. And this selfish decision is going to affect them all. So the next day he shows up to his LB's apartment to effectively apologize and just, I guess, let them know why he didn't show up for them. And they had to hit him with the harsh truth, like, we might have just pissed our process away for you. Because when you didn't go, we didn't go. And because we didn't go, we might not be pledging anymore. We don't know what the brothers are going to do. To make up for it, Kyle brings a few ladies over to entertain his LBs, which, I mean, that's cool. But at some point, they have to face the music and talk to their big brothers. And when they show up to talk with their big brothers, they all take the blame. They all, try to cut for one another, which is what you expect and want out of a line because they're one. So the DP is proud of his boys, even though they disappointed. We go back and forth in between the Pi line and the Gamma line. Both lines are reciting Invictus. And I guess this is their way of symbolizing they're at the end of their process. And we go through the entire poem where it's flip-flopping between each group. And we see Quentin, we see Kyle, And the Cooper brothers are crossing at the same time, even though they're crossing in separate frats. And we're getting prepared for the big day. And that's probate day, obviously. And we start off with the Gammas. They're coming out to, a soft serve version of Atomic Dog, and they're hopping and jumping and spinning and barking and, being low budget Omegas. But it's a small crowd, so I don't think Black Greek life in this campus matters as much as it does on many other campuses. And just looking at like this probate, I can understand why Greek life isn't that important on this campus. This was a terrible showing. Like a terrible showing of a probate. It seemed like they weren't practicing at all. But something that stuck out to me was the fact that Quentin and Kyle's dad did not show up to the probate. Like, you spent all these years force feeding Gamma to these boys, and one of your boys actually crosses into the frat, and you don't even show up to see him? Like, that sucked. As the Gammas are finishing up their probate, they get interrupted by these loud noises. The pies are coming. Now, I don't know if this was planned this way, but the way the Gammas, the way that they were looking, I'm pretty sure they weren't ready for the pies to have a probate same time, same place as them. It's kind of a low blow, easy fight starter, but we see the pie line, and we get to see our boy Kyle as an official member of Mu Gamma Pi. And just like the Gammas, the Pies are a ripoff of a real organization. They're clearly a ripoff of Kappa Alpha Psi, and a terrible ripoff at that. We see Kyle do a terrible rendition of the shimmy as he goes and hugs Nia. And obviously this is in front of D-Shaw, the big hater, so that didn't go over well. The probate is over, and we go back to Kyle and Quentin's house, where Quentin's dad is overjoyed with seeing Quentin in this Gamma gear. And I understand the pride in that because, that's kind of like what he worked for his whole life, to see his boys be a member of his fraternity. But he's not showing Kyle any love or attention. And Quentin calls him out, which is, like I said, Quentin's an amazing big brother. And he calls his dad out, his hero, and tells him, you ain't said nothing to Kyle or his brother, or his line brother. And he finally speaks up, and he asks Kyle's line brother about his lineage. And he let him know that, he came from Pi blood, so he congratulated him, specifically him, on following the family's legacy. It was petty, but whatever.
My dad and grandpa are Pies.
I see. Well, let me congratulate you for keeping with family tradition. You see,
that little petty comment set off an argument, and it pushed Kyle away. Him and his dad come face to face, and Quentin has to again be the mediator, and Kyle gets up out of there. But back to the school, the Pies have been invited to participate in Greek Week, which is a really big deal because no Black Greek organization has ever been allowed to participate. So this is a game changer, not just for the Pies, but for all the Black organizations on the campus. D-Shaw takes this opportunity to throw salt in Kyle's game. Kyle is getting closer to another young lady, but it's nothing romantic. She's helping the Pies out and, getting them to be a part of Greek Week. I think she's the president or something. So D-Shaw throws the salt, and Nia must clearly have taken the bait because Quentin comes to pick up Kyle to let him know and let him see what's been going on. He lets him know that Nia's been at the Gamma house every day this week, kicking it with D-Shaw. And Cal gets to see it for himself. They hide in the bushes and they see that, she's coming out with D-Shaw after telling him she was just studying. She didn't tell him that she was studying with basically his enemy. She knows they're beefing, so this was real weird and petty of her. And so the next day they have a party, all her homegirls and his LBs, and they sit down and they play Never Have I Ever. And this game obviously takes a really bad turn because my boy Kyle says, never have I ever cheated or been at the Gamma House all week. And everybody's surprised, don't know what's going on. But then, after he calls Nia out, he basically says, never have I ever broke up with somebody in front of a crowd until now. And so he breaks up with her in front of everybody. Now, the one person who's the most happy about this breakup is D-Shaw, of course. And he doesn't waste any time trying to rub it into Kyle's face. We see Kyle and the young lady are doing some Greek week work, and D-Shaw comes and tries to publicly humiliate him while telling him about how Nia's been upset and been all over him, and he's gonna do what he can to comfort her. Just trying to rub salt in the game. And before he could really dig in and pump his chest out, Kyle's DP comes around and reminds D-Shaw, bro, you were nothing before you became a Gamma. You was the overweight chubby kid that did not get any girls that played in the band. So this moment was way more embarrassing for D-Shaw than he expected it to be. And of course, him being as petty as he has been, he has to figure out a way to get revenge. And his bright idea is for them to dress up like bank robbers and go steal the letters off the Pie's house. The Pies see them doing it and they rush after them, so a big chase ensues. Kyle catches up to Q, of all people that was running. Q really didn't want to participate. He was absolutely against the idea, but when Kyle caught him, it really hurt his heart. And so the next day, they get together and I guess they had their own loving basketball moment. And I'm not even going to explain. I'm just let y'all see a little bit of it.
And you chose the Pies over me.
We had a Greek week party and both organizations are strolling, trying to have a good time. But D-Shaw, he has it in his mind to get back at Kyle. So he starts a fight, and we don't see the fight, but we see the aftermath where the Pies are talking with their advisor. And their advisor is, on their tail about what they just did. And the only thing they could really tell them was, we won. So he's not happy about it, and he lets them know that they're probably not going to be able to participate in Greek week after this. But again, Quentin Cooper comes to the rescue of Kyle, and he lets the advisor know that the Gammas were the ones that started the fight, and the Pies shouldn't be punished for what happened. Now, in the beginning of the movie, we saw a step show where the Gammas won, and you saw Kyle and Quentin up on the stage celebrating with the Gammas. Well, this time, the Pies won. And guess who pops up? Old Dad. And Dad is coming on a more apologetic type of time. He brings his son a pie shirt, watches him put it on and says, man, you look good in that. But you a legacy of the Gamma. And he says, I'm building my own legacy. And this is our moment of forgiveness. And we see the boys and their dad embrace each other at the end of the movie. And it was great. The moral of the story is you can have an expectation for your kids, but it's their legacy that they're building, even though you want them to be a part of yours. We see Kyle and Cooper's dad figure that out at the end. So the question is this movie for you? Yes. If you enjoy any college-related movies, any Greek-based movies, this was a decent one. It had its ups and downs. It had a Marvel-level villain in Lil Romeo. So if you get a chance, man, go ahead and check it out. I think it's still on Tubi as I record this. I know it is. So go check it out. It's a decent watch. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching my review. Love you.
Go hard or go home. Well, nigga, I'm homeless. Go hard or go home. Damn, my keys broke. Go hard or go home. Well, nigga, I'm homeless. Go hard or go home. Damn, my keys broke.